Oh, hey, you woke me up. Welcome to the Sleepy Cloud, where we keep it lazy, funny, and a little bit dreamy. Hit that subscribe button before I fall back asleep. The sea has always spoken to me. Not with words, not with a voice like ours, but with soft sounds that only the heart can understand. When I was a child, I thought everyone could hear it. The quiet whispers that drifted from the waves at night, like stories carried from faraway places. But as I grew older, I realized the sea only spoke to a few of us. The listeners, the dreamers, the ones who still stayed awake long after the world had gone to sleep. Now, I live in a small cottage by the shore. My window faces the endless water, and each night before I sleep, I open it just a little. The cool air comes in, carrying the smell of salt and the soft sound of waves brushing against the rocks. It feels like the ocean is breathing, a slow, steady rhythm that calms my own heartbeat. Sometimes, when the moon is bright and the tide is low, I walk down to the beach barefoot. The sand is cold beneath my feet, and the wind plays gently with my hair. The world feels quiet there, as if time itself is resting. I can hear the distant song of the sea, like a hum just beneath the surface, waiting to be heard. That's when the whispers begin. They come softly, like the sigh of a shell pressed against your ear. Not clear words, not full sentences, but feelings. The sea doesn't speak in language. It speaks in emotion. Sadness, joy, longing, peace. Sometimes I can almost tell what it's trying to say, and other times it feels like a dream that fades when you wake. I remember one night in early spring. The sky was silver with mist, and the waves glowed faintly under the moonlight. I stood by the water's edge and heard a whisper that sounded almost like my name. Liora? The sound came and went with the wind. I turned, half expecting someone behind me, but there was no one, only the rolling sea and the faraway call of a gull. Liora. The sea said my name again. My heart beat faster. I stepped closer to the water, my reflection trembling in the tide. "What are you?" I asked softly. "What do you want me to hear?" There was no answer, only the hush of waves folding over themselves, the quiet rhythm of the tide. But beneath that sound, I felt something. A warmth, a presence, a memory not my own. The sea was trying to tell me something. I just didn't understand what yet. When I returned home that night, the air inside the cottage felt still and listening. I lit my small lantern, its golden light flickering across the walls. My cat, Minnow, purred softly by the window. I poured a cup of chamomile tea and sat in my old rocking chair by the window, watching the sea breathe under the moonlight. It was then I realized the whispers weren't just sounds. They were stories. The sea remembered everything. Every lost ship, every traveler, every drop of rain that had ever fallen into its heart. It kept those memories deep beneath its waves, and sometimes, when the world was quiet enough, it shared them. That night, I listened. The whispers told me of a lighthouse once standing on the far side of the bay, a tall silver tower that guided sailors home. The keeper was an old man who had lived alone, lighting the lamp each dusk and whispering to the sea as if it were a friend. But one stormy night, the light went out. No one ever saw the keeper again. Only his lantern washed ashore days later, still faintly glowing. I shivered as the whisper faded. It wasn't frightening, not really, just sad. Like a lullaby played in a minor key. The sea, it seemed, carried not just stories of beauty, but of loss, too. Outside, the waves continued to rise and fall, their song steady and slow. Minnow's soft purring mixed with the distant sound of water. My eyes grew heavy. The world blurred at the edges. And then I dreamed. In the dream, I was standing beneath the water, but I could still breathe. The ocean around me glowed with light, soft blues and greens like the aurora reflected in liquid glass. Schools of fish drifted past me, shining like stars. And in the distance, a shadow moved slowly, a shape vast and ancient, older than time. It came closer, and I saw that it was not a creature, but a figure, a woman made of water and moonlight. Her eyes shimmered like pearls, and when she spoke, her voice was the same whisper I had heard on the shore. "Liora," she said gently, "the sea remembers you." I wanted to ask her what she meant, but before I could, her hand reached out to mine. Her touch was warm, like sunlight through waves. Then everything faded, and I woke to the sound of morning gulls. The sky was pale gold. The seas shimmered calmly as if nothing had happened. But on my bedside table, there was a shell I had never seen before. Smooth, white, and faintly glowing. When I lifted it to my ear, I heard the ocean whisper again. Only this time, it said something clear. "Find the echoes." That was how it began, the first true whisper beneath the waves. I didn't yet know what it meant or where it would lead me, but I knew the sea had chosen me for something quiet and important, hidden beneath its endless song. So I packed my journal, my lantern, and Minnow's favorite blanket. That evening, as the sun sank into the horizon, I began my walk along the coast, to follow the whispers wherever they led. The sea was calm, the wind was soft, and somewhere far away, the waves murmured my name again. "Liora." And I listened. The next morning, the air was cool and bright. A soft mist floated over the water, and the sea looked like glass. I could hear the gentle cry of gulls in the distance, and the waves moved in slow rhythms as if breathing in their sleep. Minnow followed me down the sandy path that led to the shore. Her small paws left tiny prints beside mine. I carried my old satchel, a warm scarf, and a little brass lantern that once belonged to my father. Its glass sides were cracked, but when the light shone through, it still glowed like honey. The sea whispered softly, as if waiting, and when I listened carefully, I thought I heard it again. Find the echoes. I didn't know what the echoes were. Maybe voices from the past, maybe something lost beneath the waves, but I felt deep inside that I was meant to follow the sound. So, I began to walk along the shoreline, letting the ocean guide me. The day passed slowly. The sun rose higher, painting the sea with gold. Tiny shells sparkled in the sand, and driftwood pieces lay scattered like old bones. I stopped now and then to listen. Sometimes the whispers grew stronger near pools of water, or when the wind shifted. Other times, the sea was silent, keeping its secrets close. By afternoon, I reached a small cliff that curved over the water. From there, I could see a stretch of coastline I had never walked before, quiet, untouched, and wild. The path led down through tall seagrass that danced gently in the breeze. At the bottom of the cliff, I found something strange. An old wooden post stood half buried in the sand, wrapped in seaweed and rope. Hanging from it was a rusted hook, and on that hook, an empty lantern swung in the wind. I touched it gently. The metal was cold, and the glass was clouded with salt. And yet, it looked familiar. My heart quickened. This could be the lantern from the story the sea had whispered, the one that once belonged to the lighthouse keeper who vanished in the storm. As I looked closer, I saw something inside it,
a faint shimmer like a spark trapped within the glass. When I lifted the lantern, it pulsed softly, as if waking from a long sleep. Minnow meowed and brushed against my leg, her fur standing slightly on end. "It's all right," I whispered, though I wasn't sure if it was. Then the wind changed. The waves grew louder, rolling against the rocks with slow power. I heard the whisper again, clearer this time, rising between the sounds of the sea. "Listen, beneath." Beneath. I looked toward the water, the tide now pulling outward and revealing dark shapes beneath the surface. Stones, maybe, or ruins. Something deep was calling me there. That evening, when the sun dipped low and the sky turned lavender, I built a small fire by the shore. I warmed some soup in a pot and sat watching the sea breathe in the dim light. Minnow curled up beside me, eyes half closed, her purr blending with the hum of the waves. The lantern lay beside me, faintly glowing in the dark. As I watched it, a thought came to me, gentle but strong. Maybe the lantern wasn't just an object from the story. Maybe it was a guide. Maybe it remembered the same whispers that I did. When the stars appeared, I picked it up. The light inside flickered softly, like a heartbeat. I whispered to the sea, "If you want me to find the echoes, show me where to go." The flame brightened, and for a moment the glow stretched across the sand, pointing toward a narrow path between two rocks. I stood slowly, heart calm but awake, and began to walk. The rocks were wet and slick beneath my hands as I squeezed through the narrow opening. Beyond them, the sound of the sea grew hollow, like a voice echoing through a shell. The air smelled of deep water and time. And then I saw it. A cave, half hidden by tide and shadow. Its entrance shimmered faintly, as though light from another world leaked through. The lantern in my hand flickered in reply. I took a slow breath and stepped inside. The sound changed immediately. Outside, the waves had been soft and steady. Inside, the world was full of whispers. They echoed through the cave, gentle but endless, like hundreds of voices speaking just beyond hearing. The walls were covered in salt crystals that sparkled under the lantern's glow. Water dripped from the ceiling, each drop echoing like a tiny bell. I followed the sound deeper, my steps slow, my heart steady. As I reached the far end of the cave, I saw something shining at the edge of a small pool. It was a stone, smooth and round, glowing faintly blue. I bent to pick it up, and as my fingers touched it, I heard a voice, clear and close. "Do not be afraid, listener." I froze. The voice wasn't in the air, it was in my mind, soft and calm, like the ocean itself was speaking inside me. "Who are you?" I whispered. "I am what you hear," the voice said. "I am the memory of the sea. You have been chosen to listen. The echoes you seek are not sounds, but souls, forgotten voices that wish to be remembered." I looked into the water. For a moment, I thought I saw faces, faint shapes, like reflections of people long gone, smiling faintly before fading away. "Why me?" I asked softly. "Because you still hear," the sea replied. "Most have forgotten how." The glow of the stone pulsed like a heartbeat in my palm. "Where should I go?" I asked. "Follow the light," the voice said. "The sea will guide you to the next echo." Then the sound faded. The cave grew quiet again, save for the soft drip of water and Minnow's distant meow near the entrance. I placed the glowing stone inside the lantern, and it shone brighter, filling the cave with gentle blue light. When I stepped outside, The night sky stretched wide above me, filled with stars. The sea shimmered, calm and silver. And far out in the water, I thought I saw a single golden light, like another lantern waiting. The wind brushed my face, carrying a whisper. The deep remembers. I walked along the sand, the lantern glowing steady in my hand, the whisper following me like a song. Minnow trotted close, tail high, her little paws leaving prints that disappeared with each wave. Somewhere ahead, I knew the second echo was waiting, beneath the deep blue silence. And the sea was still singing.
The next morning, the world felt different. The sky was a pale, sleepy blue, and the air tasted of salt and new beginnings. The sea was quiet again, as if it had spoken enough for one night. I held the lantern in my hands, its soft blue light still glowing faintly. Inside it, the small stone pulsed gently, like a heart. I didn't know where it would lead me next, but I trusted it now. The sea had not led me wrong. Minnow followed close as we walked along the coastline. The sand was cool underfoot, and the waves reached out to kiss the shore before sliding away again. Sometimes I thought I could hear faint singing, far beyond the horizon, like the hum of voices carried by the wind. By afternoon, the sky grew hazy. The wind changed direction, and I noticed a strange thing ahead, a line of shapes near the water's edge, half hidden by mist. As I came closer, I saw that they were small houses, built entirely of driftwood, shells, and pieces of old boats. It was a village I had never seen before. Lanterns hung from ropes between the houses, each one glowing faintly, though there was no fire inside. The air was warm here, and the sound of the waves softened, as if the sea itself was whispering kindly over the rooftops. Minnow walked ahead, tail high, as if she had been here before. I followed her through the narrow sandy streets until we reached a large circle at the center of the village. In that circle stood a woman, sweeping the sand from her doorway. Her hair was white like sea foam, and her eyes were the color of deep water. When she looked at me, she smiled softly, as though she already knew who I was. "Welcome, listener," she said. My heart skipped. "You know that name?" "Of course," she replied. "We've been waiting for you." She set down her broom and motioned for me to follow. Inside her home, everything smelled of herbs, sea salt, and something warm like bread. The walls were made of polished shells that shimmered faintly in the light. "Who are you?" I asked. "My name is Marilyn. I keep the memory of this shore. Long ago, the sea spoke to us, but most stopped listening. Only a few still remember its song." She pointed to the lantern I carried. "That light means the sea has chosen you. It has given you one of its stones." I looked down at it, still glowing softly. "It told me to find the echoes." Marilyn nodded. "There are 6. Each one holds a memory of something the ocean has lost. When you find them all, the sea will rest, and so will those who whisper beneath the waves." I listened to her words carefully. The soft rhythm of her voice matched the slow beat of the tide outside. "How do I find the next one?" She smiled faintly and reached behind her. When her hand returned, she held a small glass bottle sealed with wax. Inside it floated a single drop of glowing light. "Take this," she said. "When you open it, the light will guide you. But be gentle. It belongs to the sea."
I nodded and placed the bottle carefully into my satchel. Before I left, Marilyn touched my shoulder. "Remember, listener," she said softly, "the sea gives, but it also keeps. Listen closely. Not every whisper is kind." Outside, the mist was thickening again. The lantern glowed brighter, and Minnow walked close to my side. As I looked back, the driftwood village was fading into the fog, its lanterns flickering like stars before disappearing completely. Only the waves remained, humming softly. That night, as I camped by a quiet cove, I opened the glass bottle. The light drifted upward and began to move slowly across the sand, glowing brighter each time a wave touched the shore. It was leading me again, toward the water.
The next morning, the tide was low, revealing a long stretch of rocks leading far out into the sea. The glowing light from the bottle hovered above them, moving steadily forward. I followed, stepping carefully, the lantern in my hand. The sea around me was still and smooth, like glass. The world was silent except for the soft drip of water from my boots. Far ahead, I could see a faint shimmer under the waves, something large, round, and silver. When I reached it, I saw that it was a dome made of crystal, half buried beneath the sea. Inside, lights moved slowly, like drifting stars. The whispers were stronger here. They came from every direction, filling my head with soft voices, all speaking at once, but gently, never harsh. "Rest," they said. "Remember. Dream again. Listen, and we will sleep." The water glowed softly around the dome, and the lantern's light pulsed faster. I felt a pull, a gentle call inviting me to step closer. Without fear, I waded into the water until it reached my waist. The water was warm, almost comforting. The glow from the dome brightened, and before I could think, I was surrounded by light. For a moment, I could see everything, the bottom of the ocean stretching out in colors I had never known. Coral forests swayed like music. Silver fish darted between rocks. And in the middle of it all stood a woman, the same one from my dream. Her hair floated around her like waves, and her voice was calm as moonlight. "Liora, you were in the sea of dreams. This is where the memories of the ocean sleep." I bowed my head, though I didn't know why. "Why have you brought me here?" "To remind the sea who it is," she said softly. "Long ago, humans built walls, ships, and harbors, and this stopped listening. The sea began to forget its own song. But you still hear." She held out her hand, and in her palm rested another glowing stone, this one green and shaped like a teardrop. "Take this. It holds the second echo, the dream of the sea itself." When I touched it, a wave of calm filled me. My heart slowed, my thoughts quieted. The light wrapped around me like warm water, and for a moment, I forgot where I was. Then, as softly as a sigh, the vision faded. I was back on the rocks, the tide gently rising around my ankles. The second stone glowed in my lantern beside the first. Minnow was waiting on the shore, her golden eyes bright in the dim light. Days passed. I walked along the coast, through sun and mist, past cliffs and caves, following the sea's gentle pull. Sometimes I met people who seemed half real, an old fisherman who spoke of ships that never returned, a child building sandcastles that the tide never washed away. Each left behind a small piece of a story, like seashells scattered along the sand. One evening, I reached a stretch of coast I had never seen before. The cliffs were high and red, and at their base stood the ruins of an old harbor, broken ships, fallen docks, and ropes tangled like vines. The air was heavy with silence. The lantern in my hand began to hum softly. The stones inside glowed together, blue and green, their lights intertwining. I felt a pull toward the water. Beneath the broken dock, I found a mirror of still water, perfectly round. When I looked into it, I didn't see my reflection. Instead, I saw people, sailors working, laughing, waving from the decks of shining ships. I saw the harbor alive again, full of sound and joy. Then, the image changed. The sky darkened, the waves rose high, and the ships broke apart in a great storm. The sound of thunder filled my ears, and then silence. The whisper that followed was small and sad. We only wanted to return home. I closed my eyes, letting the sound sink deep into my heart. When I opened them again, the mirror was gone. In its place lay another stone, white as sea foam, glowing faintly in the dark. The third echo. I placed it in the lantern. The light grew warmer, softer, wrapping me in peace. The lost sailor's whispers faded into calm, as if finally at rest. Minnow rubbed against my leg, and I smiled. 3 found, I said softly. 3 more to go. The waves answered with a gentle sigh, like a lullaby for the sea itself. Many nights later, the journey brought me full circle. I stood again at the beach near my cottage, the same place where I had first heard the sea call my name. The lantern was heavy now with light, 6 stones glowing softly within, each one a memory, a dream, a whisper made whole. The sea was calm, darker than ink, but shining beneath the stars. The voice came again, clear and tender. You have done well, listener. The echoes are home. The water shimmered, and the woman of waves appeared one last time. Her face was gentle, her smile warm as morning sun. What will happen now? I asked. The sea will remember, she said. It will no longer cry for what was lost, and you, Liora, will always hear its song. She placed her hand over the lantern. The stones inside rose slowly, drifting upward like bubbles, then dissolving into light that spread across the sea. The water glowed softly for a moment, then faded into calm silver. The woman's form began to fade too, her voice growing quiet. When you listen to the waves, remember, they speak only to those who dream kindly. And then she was gone. The world was silent again, except for the slow breathing of the tide. I stood there for a long time, feeling the wind brush my face, the sound of the sea steady and soft. Minnow curled up at my feet, purring, and I felt peace fill my chest. That night, I sat by my window, the lantern now empty, but still warm to the touch. I wrote in my journal. The whispers beneath the waves were never voices from somewhere else. They were memories of love, loss, and longing, things the sea wanted us to remember. And maybe, when we listen carefully, we can hear them in ourselves. The waves outside whispered again, softer than breath. They no longer called my name. They just said, "Thank you." And as the night deepened, the stars reflected in the quiet water like lanterns on the surface of the world. I closed my eyes, listening to the sea's endless lullaby. The world was at peace, and so was I. Thanks for floating with me on the sleepy cloud today. If you enjoyed the calm, give this video a like, subscribe for more cozy moments, and keep dreaming.